Senate will come to order. The Senator from Lynchburg, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until 12:01 today.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until 12:01 today? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate stands adjourned until 12:01. Being 12:02, the Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privileges of the floor will kindly retire to the gallery. The senators and all in attendance will please stand and be led in prayer by the Reverend Michael Sage, Freedom Tabernacle Baptist Church, Atkins. Reverend Sage, welcome.
Lord, I'm humbly honored to stand here today, calling upon you, Almighty God, to forever bless our General Assembly. Thankfully, since Washington, Jefferson, and others, this body has sought the favor of your grace and the guidance of your wisdom. Grant to us a constant respect for our history and a renewed confidence for all of our tomorrows here in Virginia. Bless our senators, their staffs, and their families. Bestow upon each one of them wisdom, insight, discernment, and patience as they conduct our affairs here today and every day through this session. If a house divided cannot stand, then we seek unity and we solicit mutual respect. From my personal faith in the book of Romans, I find that we are to perpetually hold in our hearts goodwill to everyone and ill will to no one. So may a sincere spirit of strong camaraderie solidify the lives of us Virginians, from our magnificent shorelines to our majestic mountains, and hear this same petition as we extend it to the entire United States. So in our great tradition of religious liberties, we ask again this day that your enduring mercies be with us, your eternal love be upon us, and that your everlasting peace be before us. I pray we will be steadfast in our vigilance and unwavering in our resolve to assure our children even greater provisions than those of our parents. We remain confident that faith, hope, and love shall never perish from our midst. This prayer I offer to you in the name of Christ Jesus, my Lord, with compassion and charity to all. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Clerk will call the roll. All those present will please vote aye. The clerk will close the roll.
You have a quorum, Mr. President. Senate Journal for Wednesday, March 2nd, 2016.
The senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico, moves that the reading of the journal be waived. All in favor of waiving the reading of the journal will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 34, noes 4.
Ayes 36, noes 4. The reading of the journal is waived. The clerk will please report any communication from the House of Delegates. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we waive the reading of any communications received from the House of Delegates, sir.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the reading of the communication be waived? All in favor of waiving the reading of the communication from the House of Delegates will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 4.
Ayes 36, noes 4. The reading of the communication is waived. The clerk will please report any communications from the governor.
We do not have any, sir.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The time has come to recognize visitors to the gallery and take up other matters for the morning hour. The senator from Fauquier County, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for purposes of an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am delighted to direct your attention in the gallery to a couple of guests I have visiting from home today. The first is Allison Alto. She is from Fauquier County. She's an interior designer, and she is the owner of Allison Ford Design. She does beautiful work. Her daughter, Charlotte Alto, is here. She is Allison's daughter, and she's a student at Hill School, which is where my children go to school. Charlotte is here, I should say, Madam Clerk. She might be an aspiring page, so she might be here to stake out the program. So I just wanted to mention that and put in a good word. Also with them in the gallery is Joy Lynn Hannas. She's from Loudoun County. She's a photographer, and she's the owner of Joy Lynn Hannas Photography. And her daughter, Georgia, is also here, Georgia Rickabine. She is a 7th grader at Blue Ridge Middle School. And Madam Clerk, she's also here to stake out the PAGE program. So I just want to say that again. And I would ask that you please extend to them the very warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would Allison Alto and her daughter Charlotte and your guests please rise? Welcome, and thank you for making the trip from up in Fauquier and Loudoun County. And we have a wonderful PAGE program, as you can see, and we're very proud of that. So we encourage you to take interest and apply if you are so inclined. And thank you for being here today to support our senator, good senator, Senator Vogel from Fauquier. And it sounds like we've got interior designing covered, photography covered, so whatever we need, it's available. So we appreciate all that you do. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering the Altos and their guests the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will ask if you would give the warm welcome of the Senate to an intern who has been serving in my office this session. Alexis Briggs is a senior at Virginia Commonwealth University. She's pursuing her bachelor's degree in psychology and African American studies, and she's from Nelson County, Virginia. Please extend to her the warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would Alexis Briggs please rise? Welcome, Alexis. I'm glad you're with us, and you're working with a great senator. Hope you've had a great experience. I was actually able to watch the VCU Rams last night. They had a good evening, so go Rams. So thanks for all your help. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Ms. Alexis Briggs the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rise for an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Today's invocation was given by the Reverend Michael Sage from Freedom Tabernacle Church. And though Reverend Sage is actually not the pastor of the church that I attend, I consider Mike a pastor of mine. A man of many faults needs many pastors. So Mike has been very instrumental in his community at Freedom Tabernacle. They just built a fantastic new church. But one thing about his congregation and about the people that know Reverend Sage is that he is a Christ-like individual who just loves everybody, and his people love him. And even though if someone probably was to speak ill of Reverend Sage, they would have a Peter-like spirit and chop their ear off. And for Senator Peterson, the rest of that story is Jesus rebuked that and put the ear back on. So the lesson taught there. But Reverend Sage has been so instrumental in so many lives. And it was an honor to have him here today to do the opening prayer. And I would ask that this body give a warm welcome to the Reverend Michael Sage.
Thank you, Senator. Would Reverend Michael Sage please rise? Sir, thank you so much for making the trip from Atkins, and what a wonderful message you provided us this afternoon to get us off on the right foot. And just as the good senator from Grayson said, you have touched so many lives, and I have so much to be proud of, and we hope you can continue your wonderful work. So safe travels to you, and best of our wishes. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering the Reverend Michael Sage the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Chesterfield, Senator Chase.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for the purposes of an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to welcome to the Senate today our County Administrator in Chesterfield County, Jay Stegmeyer. I just can't say enough wonderful things about him. I'm really disappointed that he's decided to retire. After 27 years of service, he is one of the best county administrators Chesterfield County has ever seen. He's detailed, he's knowledgeable, he's passionate, he's public service minded, he's dedicated and focused, and Chesterfield will be experiencing a huge loss. And I would just like to tell you that he has worked for the past 9 years as the administrator of the county, and during this time, he carefully guided us through a recession and successfully attracted billions, and I do mean billions, of economic development to the county during that time. The Senate will be considering a commending resolution today in his honor, and I would like to ask that my colleagues would please extend to him the warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would Mr. Jay Stegmeyer please rise? Welcome, sir, and thank you for your service to Chesterfield and to the Commonwealth of Virginia. We appreciate that, and thanks for being here this afternoon visiting with us. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Mr. Jay Stegmeyer and his guests the warm welcome of the Senate. The junior senator from Loudoun, Senator Wexton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for purposes of an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are joined here in the gallery today by my 2 session interns. Chris Miller is from Percival in Loudoun County. He's a senior at the College of William and Mary. Chris is majoring in political science with a minor in history, and at William & Mary, he's been very active in Pi Sigma Alpha, the Young Democrats, and the Quiz Bowl Club on campus. My other intern is Whitney Ralston, who joins us all the way from San Diego, California. She's a sophomore at the University of Richmond. Her major is political science with minors in healthcare and society, Arabic studies, and women and gender studies. She's a member of the Women Involved in Living and Learning program, which promotes leadership and activism both on and off campus. Mr. President, both of these interns actually asked to come and work with the junior senator from Loudoun this session, and despite my initial misgivings about their judgment, it turns out that they were fantastic, wonderful interns. They were the best interns I could have asked for. They've been very, very helpful to me. And so, Mr. President, if you would please give them the very warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would Chris and Whitney please rise? Welcome to the gallery, and thanks for all your help. And you've been working with a great senator. Hopefully you've had a great experience. And, you know, we've had a very efficient session, I think. It's been a long session, but we're almost through, and good things have happened. So it's because of folks like you that have come and volunteered and offered your services. So we appreciate your help. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Chris and Whitney the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for purposes of an introduction, sir.
Thank you, Senator. You have the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, on more than one occasion, you have heard me express my enthusiasm for the opportunity that I have to teach both at the undergraduate and law school level at the College of William & Mary. One of the programs that I initiated at William & Mary, which actually is the only remaining college intern program that we formally have working within the General Assembly, is at the College of William & Mary. And I had a group of students, one of whom the senator just recognized, but I have a group of students who have worked as interns throughout this session of the General Assembly. And you've also heard me comment that my measure of success in educating these young students at the College of William & Mary is if out of 2 classes I can convince one to go into public service for the right reason, and irrespective of any grades or other academic success, then that is an extraordinary good year for me. There are a group of students who have been working as interns throughout the session, and I want to thank Senators Marston and Senator Wexton and Senator Saslaw and Senator Miller for their very thoughtful mentoring of these students. But in the gallery, Mr. President, is Megan, Jonah, Alexandra, Dylan, Christopher, Caroline, Timothy, Benjamin, Jacob, and Eiley. And if you would extend a very warm welcome to these interns from the College of William & Mary who have been willing to work with us, but also get some insight into how the legislative process really works. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. I've spotted them. Would members from William & Mary please rise? Welcome. What a great group you are, and thanks for all your help during the session. As I just said, I think we've gotten a lot done this session because of good folks like you that have come and volunteered and helped. And just so you know, I think I may have told you when I met with you, my son graduated, our son graduated in 2010, and what a great educational opportunity you all have at William & Mary. So take advantage of it, and it'll do great things for you in your life. So I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from the William & Mary tribe the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Northern Fairfax County, Senator Howe.
Mr. President, I rise for two introductions.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first is I would also like to introduce my intern. At the very beginning of the year, we were in somewhat of a panic mode in my office because we run a very tight ship. One assistant and 2 interns, and suddenly we only had 1 intern this year. So we were kind of in panic mode about how were we going to get through. And fortunately, the intern that we got, Madeline Eldred, is outstanding. She did the work of 2. This young woman has a brilliant future, and I hope you'll give her the warm welcome of the Senate.
Well, thank you, Senator. Would Madeline please rise? Madeline, welcome, and boy, it sounds like you set the world on fire, so we appreciate all of your good help and working with a great senator. I'm sure you had a good experience and learned a lot, so thanks for being here, and we wish you the best. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Madeline the warm welcome of the Senate. Senator from Franklin. My apologies. The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also would like to introduce in the gallery the parents of our Paige Taylor Hannon Zatz. They've come down from Northern Virginia and to watch what she's been watching all session. And I hope you'll give Marie Hanam and Michael Zatz the warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. I will. Will Marie Hannon and Michael Zatz please rise? Thank you all for being here, and I hope your child has had a wonderful experience here. And as you know, the mock session is this evening, so hopefully you'll be able to stick around and watch that. It's impressive to see what they've learned and how they discuss the different issues that are before us in Virginia. So thanks for being here. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Marie Hannon and Michael Zatz the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate, and those in the gallery. Today, we have a very special group of visitors with us, the Virginia Law Enforcement Assistance Program, Virginia LEAP. Every day, law enforcement officers across the Commonwealth answer our calls and run towards unspeakable and unknown danger so that the rest of us are protected from it. Sometimes these brave men and women experience trauma from the extraordinary critical incidents in the line of duty which they cannot shake. They need, in those cases, special assistance. In the gallery are some of the law enforcement officers and citizens who have volunteered their time to run a small but mighty statewide nonprofit program, the Virginia LEAP program. Virginia LEAP arranges support from peers and counseling from experts in an FBI-proven program to help Virginia law enforcement professionals who are in need. Since the program was born in the aftermath of the Virginia Tech shootings, over 300 officers from across the state have participated in structured, effective 3-day retreats. More than 100 fellow officers have volunteered for peer training so they can offer support on the spot when a crisis arises. These programs are doing wonders for our men and women who serve us, bringing officers back to health and service, healing burnout, and restoring these men and women to their best so that they can continue to serve their communities with excellence, support their departments, and anchor their families once again. Mr. President, in our gallery today are some wonderful and great people. Please join me in giving them a warm welcome by welcoming Libby Legg, my good friends from the greatest county in all of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Franklin, Lieutenant Brent Gower, Sergeant Eric Mullen, and Reverend Alex Evans. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Would members from Virginia Law Enforcement Assistance Program please rise? Welcome this afternoon, and thank you for your service. And just as a good senator said, we appreciate all that you do to keep us safe in our communities and at work, in our workplace and schools. So we couldn't do it without you, and it's all part of allowing people to want to come to Virginia and want to live and raise their families, and you provide a wonderful service, so we thank you. And I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from the Virginia Law Enforcement Assistance Program the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm aware that you and perhaps one other member of this body attended an Institute for Leadership in Lexington some time ago, and I'm pleased today to recognize some representatives from another prestigious Institute for Leadership located to the other direction to the north of there in Stanton. Mr. President, this program was started 20 years ago, and we're going to be recognizing their successes later this year, and I hope you and other members of the body here will be able to join in that celebration. But I'm pleased to share with you, Mr. President, that we have the Virginia Women's Institute for Leadership here today, representatives. We have the Commandant, Brigadier General Terry DeJuric, and a group of women cadets that are visiting here today, accompanied by Vice President of Mary Baldwin College, Krista Cabe. And Mr. President, I would ask you to recognize them at this time.
I will. Thank you, Senator. It's so good to see them. Would members from Mary Baldwin College please rise? Thank you all for being with us this afternoon. And as the good senator from Augusta said, there are a couple of us in the Senate that went to the school just to the, I guess, to the southwest of you in Lexington. And we would come up and visit every now and then to Mary Baldwin, and they would usually promptly tell us to go back to where we came from. So you all are looking great today. What a great educational opportunity you have, and we wish you the best. And thanks for being here today and advocating for your program at Mary Baldwin. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from Mary Baldwin College in Stanton, Virginia, the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Prince William County, Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Today in the gallery, we have students from George Mason University. They're here participating in the Live Change program. And this morning, they provided a presentation to me on the school-to-prison pipeline. And they are advocating for ways we can do better, both in our policy and how we can advocate for youth that may have run into trouble to make sure they don't run into a lifetime of trouble. And they are here today in the gallery advocating and learning about the General Assembly and the process. And Mr. President, I ask you that you provide the warm welcome to the Senate.
I will. Thank you, Senator. Would members from Live Change from George Mason University please rise? Welcome to the gallery, and thanks for advocating and helping those folks from, as he said, the program from that have the misfortune of being in prison. We appreciate your advocacy for that program, and you all also have a wonderful educational opportunity up there at George Mason University, a lot to be proud of. So appreciate you being here today. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from George Mason University the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Norfolk, Senator Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the gallery, we have Dr. Judith Brown. Dr. Brown continues to be an advocate for better transportation links throughout Hampton Roads. She's not only an advocate for higher speed rail, but more importantly for transit within our community. She's joined by her grandson, a student at the Academy for Discovery at Lakewood. His name is Thomas Giros. Please give them the warm welcome of the Senate.
I will. Thank you, Senator. Would Miss Judith Brown and your grandchild Thomas Giros please rise? Welcome and thanks for making the trip from Norfolk. And I understand, Thomas, you have a friend who's one of our pages, Lachlan, and he's doing a great job and having a wonderful experience, and he'll be home in a couple weeks, so just be patient. I would ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Mrs. Judith Brown and her grandson Thomas the warm welcome of the Senate. Every now and then when you wake up in the morning, sometime as I do early, your vision is not focused and sometimes see double. And so as I look over to my left, one of the portraits is of one of our previous lieutenant governors, the Honorable John Hager. And as when I look up in the gallery, I see someone that looks exactly like him. So Lieutenant Governor Hager, it's always a pleasure to see you. What a good friend and a mentor he's been to me and a friend to all of us here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Lieutenant Governor John Hager the warm welcome of the Senate. And there may be some other guests that have joined us in the gallery and that I haven't recognized, but we certainly welcome all of you to the Senate of Virginia and hope you have a wonderful afternoon here in Mr. Jefferson's capital. Is there any other business for the morning hour? Seeing none, the clerk will please call the calendar.
Senate calendar for Thursday, March the 3rd, 2016. Page 5, unfinished business House. House Bill 1344. The House has rejected the Senate substitute.
The Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate insist on its substitute and request a committee of conference.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its substitute and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to.
On page 7, unfinished business Senate. Senate Bill 27 has passed the House with amendments.
The Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we concur with the House amendments and speak into those.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, members of the body, there are a few technical amendments that have to align the correct code section under the United States Code, under the federal code with this act. The other part of it is probably helps it a little bit by allowing the option for the plaintiffs, or counsel for the plaintiff may provide a list of attorneys familiar with this specific act of federal code that has to deal with service members. So I would move that we concur the amendments.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendments? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendments.
Senate Bill 137 has passed the House with amendment.
The Senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the amendment be agreed to. In speaking to the motion.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. What this bill does is it would require registrars, when they're emailing an absentee ballot, to use an official email address. The amendment language added by the House merely states that a general registrar can use electronic transmission facilities provided by the Federal Voting Assistance Program. This amendment is fine, does not change the intent of the bill, and it was requested, the language was requested by the registrars. So again, I ask that the amendment be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 3.
Ayes 36, noes 3. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Senate Bill 190 is passed the House with amendments.
The senator from Newport News, Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we accept the House amendments, and speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, this is the bill that bans the use of DRE voting machines, those touch-screen machines that have no paper trail. When the bill left the Senate, the vote for localities to stop using the machines was July 1st, 2018. The House amendment moves the date back to 2020. While I'd rather have it sooner than later, we now finally have a date certain when those machines will have to be retired. And again, I renew my motion that we accept the House amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendments? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 33, noes 6.
Ayes 33, noes 6. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Senate Bill 308 has passed the House with amendments.
The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 308 provides a process for filling vacancies in constitutional offices when it's vacated prior to the end of the term. The House amendments are purported to clarify this bill, and I would move that we concur with the House amendments.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendments? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Senate Bill 315 has passed the House with amendment.
The senator from Petersburg, Senator Dance.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with the House amendment, and speaking briefly to the amendment.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, the House amendment just adds on line 50 after machine. Each such machine shall remain locked and sealed until it is returned to the site at which voting and counting machines are stored in the locality. This was a recommendation of the governor and the Department of Elections, and with this amendment, Delegate O'Bannon's House Bill 104 and my bill are now identical.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Senate Bill 468 has passed the House with amendments.
The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to ask that we reject the House amendments. This bill deals with encouraging localities to work with private landowners and installing best management practices to reduce stormwater runoff. It also included an exemption for the gravel part of railroad tracks from being subject to the penalties or the fees associated with the stormwater. The House excluded that language, and so therefore I ask that we reject the House amendment.
Thank you, Senator. With the recommendations,
Mr. President,
the senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
I rise to ask the body to concur in the House amendments. Vote green, not red. And Mr. President, this is a bill that slipped out of the local government committee and went over to the House. And while it was in local government and then on the floor, there was an amendment that basically gave a special exception for the railroads with regard to having to pay a permit that everybody else, a permit fee for stormwater management that everybody else pays. Let me explain, Mr. President. Federal law requires local stormwater management programs set forth by the localities. And in doing so, the localities are authorized to provide service charges to property owners, including nonprofits, churches, for-profit businesses, everybody who is a property owner. The only exceptions are certain government entities that have permits that are involved in a separate process. And Mr. President, what the railroads have done is put in this particular bill a waiver for them only, which would mean that in Roanoke, for example, the permit fees that all other property owners in the city of Roanoke would have to pay would be 9% more than what they're now paying according to the calculations I've been given. Mr. President, this would be shifting the cost from the railroad, which would be exempt, to the rest of the citizens who are landowners. And Mr. President, the railroad has an argument that, well, the water that comes from the rain goes through the railroad ballast and the railroad structures, and therefore it permeates into the ground. Well, there's an argument, Mr. President, that it's whether it's permeable or impermeable. It's an engineering complicated argument. But even the railroad recognizes a lot of it is not permeable, is impermeable, and therefore runs off into the water, into the waterways, the rivers and streams, just like everybody else. But the city of Roanoke and other localities do this, as I understand, that have this situation, provides a 20% reduction to the railroad already, recognizing some of the water that comes from the rain and otherwise does permeate into the ground, the soil, and doesn't run off, but most of it does eventually run off, and they have a complicated formula about figuring out how to do this. Mr. President, the railroads can also, if they wish, grow vegetation, brushes, and so forth in order to, again, absorb more of the water so that it doesn't go into the rivers and streams. Again, this is a program designed to make sure the city of Roanoke complies with the regulations to make sure that the waters and streams are clean and they're not filled with runoff, which often has oil and other substances in it, and which can be noxious to the rivers and streams. So, Mr. President, I would ask the body not to accept the House amendment because the House amendment stripped off the special exemption for railroads. There's absolutely no justification whatsoever for one business to get an exception that nobody else has. Churches pay for it. Not-for-profits pay for it. Everybody else pays for it. The railroad should not get this special exception. And my understanding, Mr. President, is that many other organizations support the position of taking off this exemption, that and support the House's position, such as, for example, VACO, VML, of course, the city of Roanoke, Suffolk, Charlottesville, Richmond, and numerous other localities, the Virginia Conservation Network, the League of Conservation Voters, and the Home Builders Association. I've been advised they all support the House position here and not the Senate position here. So, Mr. President, with that explanation, I would hope this body would concur in the House amendments. The rest of the bill is a good bill, and it's needed. But the special exemption for one particular industry simply has no basis whatsoever. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Buckingham, Senator Garrett.
Very briefly, speaking against the House amendments, I want everybody in here to realize that all railroads aren't Norfolk Southern. If you've heard of the Bay Coast Railroad, the Buckingham Branch Railroad, the Chesapeake and Albemarle Railroad, the Commonwealth Railroad, Durban and Greenbrier Valley Railroad, or the Norfolk Portsmouth Belt Line. These are all short line railroads in Virginia who create economic opportunity in communities that are oftentimes economically challenged. And the burden that this amendment might create for those shoreline railroads might be enough to make them go away, just like the coal tax credit and that sort of thing. Sometimes a little bit of regulatory relief is the difference between keeping an industry alive and having it go away. So I would support the senator from Virginia Beach's motion that we not agree with the House amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. President. If no one else wishes to speak, let me give you a little, re-inform everybody about how the stormwater fee works. When a locality opts to charge a stormwater fee, they develop what's called an equivalent residential unit. And they take the average of the impervious surface of the average house in your locality. In mine, it's determined to be 1,600 square feet of impervious surface. That is the roof, driveway, sidewalks, hard surfaces. And then when they come back and look at a commercial piece of property, They look at how much impervious surface there is. In other words, in Virginia Beach, how many 1,600 square feet of impervious surface, figure out that, and then multiply it by the monthly fee, and that's what these commercial property owners are charged. Nothing in the amendment that we're referencing talks to any impervious surfaces that the railroad has. They'll pay a stormwater fee on the impervious surfaces. What we're talking about is the rail track itself and the gravel that the rail track sits on. And in committee or in subcommittee, and we're not allowed to bring props, and I wouldn't have brought it with me anyway because I didn't think it was going to be a problem on a rejection of a House amendment, it clearly shows VDOT's calculations of runoff. And they use these over and over again. And a railroad track has less runoff than a playground. It is amazing where it fits into the scheme. These are not impervious surfaces, these are pervious surfaces. And localities, some localities, not all, very interestingly, some localities have said, well, it's the railroad. And it might not, it's not pervious, it's not impervious surface, but you know what, we're going to bill them anyway. We're going to bill them anyway. And one of the things that burns me up a lot about these stormwater fees is what are they actually doing, taking money from them, and are they cleaning up the water? So when you ask these localities that are taking money on a pervious surface, not an impervious surface, and saying, okay, you collected all this money, what'd you do? If there is a water problem, and there isn't if you look at the VDOT numbers, what have you done to clean the water up? That particular water, and the answer is nothing, zero. That's kind of what the rest of the bill goes to and does that. But right now, it's just a question of fairness. Are we going to go around? Because think of the implications. If the railroads do it, then every gravel driveway on every piece of commercial property, every piece of pervious property, on any number of things in any one of those jurisdictions, all of a sudden say, well, you know what? Gee, it's pervious on the railroads. We ought to be charging a stormwater fee for those too. So you have no idea where this could lead on gifts. So what I'm trying to do is say impervious surface is impervious surface. It's going to be billed. If you're impervious, you're not going to be. It's unfortunate. You would think we had to put this legislation in because some localities, some, not all, are treating a pervious surface as impervious for the purposes of collection fees. That's what it is, so I hope we reject the House amendment.
Mr. President, will the senior senator from Virginia Beach yield for a question?
I'd be delighted.
He yields, Senator.
Will the senator agree that these permit fees, these stormwater fees that all localities are required to put into place, these stormwater programs, these fees are set by the local governments? These are local permit fees. Would the senator agree with that?
I would.
Speaking again to the bill, if nobody else.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this is a local issue. The localities can decide how they want to do it. Here we're trying to put a statewide solution to what is a local issue. And I would hope the body would concur in the House amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, if no one else wishes to speak, I wish to comment on that last comment since it led to a question and answer. Yeah, it is a fee. It is a fee that was authorized by this General Assembly 22 years ago. I was here. It was a fee that was authorized that says we have to authorize localities to charge this fee because the EPA is telling us to in order for localities to get the permit to treat this as a point source discharge. That was the huge change on the reenactment of the Clean Water Act. Had to be treated as a point source discharge. Point source discharge for impervious surfaces, not pervious surfaces. That's the key point. So we do this every year, and if we're going to go down the road of this is localities, this is what happens when they go above and beyond what the authorization was. It's unfortunate we have to pass legislation. With that, I'll renew my motion that we reject the House amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The motion on the floor is to reject the amendments. With the recommendation that they be rejected, the question is, shall the amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 10, noes 30.
Ayes 10, noes 30. The amendments are rejected.
Senate Bill 574 has passed the House with a substitute.
The senior senator from Henrico, Senator McEachin.
Mr. President, may this bill go by temporarily?
Without objection, Senate Bill 574 will go by temporarily. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having voted on the prevailing side by which Senate Bill 137 on page 8 passed 36 to 3 to 1, I would ask that we reconsider that vote, please, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Lewis, did you have a request?
Mr. President, having voted on the prevailing side,
You want
to come back?
Different bill?
Different bill.
I'll come right back.
All right, sir.
Senator Bavola, did
Mr. President, having previously explained.
Oh, no, we're good. I've got to make a motion, and I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Mr. President, if everybody will just relax, we'll get this done.
All right. The question is, shall the vote by which the amendments were concurred with on Senate Bill 137 be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. The senator from James City County.
Mr. President, this is just being reconsidered so that everyone may vote.
Thank you, Senator. I think our motion is good. Senator, we're good to go. Yes, ma'am. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment on Senate Bill 137? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 1.
Ayes 38, noes 1. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Some days it just doesn't pay. Mr. President, still on page 8, having voted on the prevailing side of which Senate Bill 190, where we agreed to accept the House amendments, I would ask we reconsider that vote, sir.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the vote by which the Senate concurred with the House amendments on Senate Bill 190 be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. The senator from Newport News, Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having previously been explained, I move we accept the House amendments.
Question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendments? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 33, noes 5, Rule 36-1.
Ayes 33, noes 5, Rule 36-1. The Senate concurs with the House amendments. The senator from Accomack, Senator Lewis.
Mr. President, having voted on the prevailing side by which we rejected the amendments to House Bill number 468, I move that we reconsider that vote.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the vote by which the Senate rejected the House amendment be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. The senior senator from Virginia Beach.
Mr. President, with the recommendation that this amendment be rejected, I move that the amendment be concurred with.
Thank you, Senator. With the recommendation that they be rejected, the question is, shall the amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 11, noes 29.
Ayes 11, noes 29. The amendments are rejected.
Senate Bill 120, the House insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
Senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. I seceded to a committee of conference.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to a request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The motion is agreed to.
Conferees on the part of the Senate on Senate Bill 120, as named by the Chairman of Transportation, Senator Carrico, are Senators Carrico, Favola, and Marsden. Senate Bill 253. The House insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
The junior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator DiStefano.
Mr. President, I cede to the conference committee.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to.
Conferees on the part of the Senate on Senate Bill 253 as named by the Chairman of Rehabilitation and Social Services, Senator Reeves, are Senators DiStefano, McDougal, and Chafin.
Susan, the teaching is ready if you want to.
Returning to 574.
Senate Bill 574, the senior senator from Henrico, Senator McEachin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that we concur with the House substitute in speaking briefly to that motion.
Who has the floor?
Mr. President, the body will remember that this bill has to do with how often we train our election officers. In the House, they modified how often that training should happen down to once during a particular appointment time period, and they also amended it to offer online training. Basically, what they did was provide our localities more flexibility than the bill had when it left the Senate. I hope it will be the pleasure of the Senate to concur with the House substitute.
The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
Senate bills with governor's recommendations. Senate Bill 122.
Senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
Mr. President, speaking to Senate Bill 122 and the governor's amendments, I would ask that we adopt the governor's amendments. They are a friendly amendment, I know. And basically, without this amendment, which makes it an emergency legislation, the town of Damascus would have to have 2 elections in order to get to the point of moving that election to November, and I would ask that we accept this first governor's friendly amendment that I've gotten so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the governor's recommendations to Senate Bill 122 be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. The governor's recommendations are agreed to.
Senate Bill 494.
Senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surville.
Mr. President, at the request of His Excellency, I would ask that this bill go by for the day.
Without objection, Senate Bill 494 will go by for the day.
Senate bills vetoed by the governor. Senate Bill 612.
Senator from Grayson, the senator from Buckingham.
This is the nicest thing anybody's said to me all day, Mr. President. Can that bill go by for the day?
Without objection, Senate Bill 612 will go by for the day.
Senate Bill 21.
Senator from Russell County, Senator Chafin.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass in the enrolled form, notwithstanding the objections of the governor.
Thank you. Did you want to speak to that, Senator?
Speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, sir. This is the Clean Power Plan bill, and this bill, I'll remind you, gives each of us a voice concerning the implementation of the plan as required by the EPA. It allows us to review the work of the DEQ and the SCC, and requires that all who work on the plan make some common sense judgment calls about things like energy price increases on lower and middle income families, direct and indirect employment effects and job losses, impacts on economic development, and the overall competitive position of the Commonwealth with its neighboring states. Now, I wonder if any of you can tell me why we wouldn't want to consider those things. Why? Why would we not want to use common sense and consider those things? So, I mean, we know that the administration is eager to partner with President Obama's EPA. We know that the governor has even said that he intends to move forward with the implementation of the carbon rules, even though they've been stopped in their tracks by the United States Supreme Court, who is considering an appeal as to whether or not they're constitutional. And we know that the governor has said that he intends to move forward and partner with the states of New York, California, Washington State, and Colorado. And, you know, I'm not sure what we have in common with those states, but I think the governor has identified that for us. So I say to you as a body, let's not be like lemons and jump in the sea. You know, why do we want to do that? I mean, why do we want to be like a bunch of lemons and jump in the sea when this thing is under appeal and the United States Supreme Court may very well overturn it all? Why in the world do we want to go forward at this moment? I want you to say that word. Why? So, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I hope that you'll muster the courage to vote for this fine piece of work, this bill, and put up enough votes to overturn it.
Would the gentleman yield for a question, Mr. President? Why?
I want to know why.
I just have one question to ask him. Does he agree with all Supreme Court rulings?
Mr. President, I can answer the senator from Fairfax, and I can say that I do not personally agree with all Supreme Court decisions.
I didn't think you did.
From Fairfax County, Senator Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to answer the question, why? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. You know, when it comes to natural resources and the environment, it might be okay for us to, you know, stick our nose into the Menhaden business or something like that. But when it comes to clean air, when it comes to reducing the carbon, you know, because of the impact on our climate and sea level rise, excuse me, didn't mean sea level rise, I meant recurrent flooding, that those issues are too important. This is about science, not politics. You know, when we meet as a body here, we tend to get into compromise. We tend to get into trying to balance regional interests and what have you. And the Commonwealth needs to speak with one voice here for all of the Commonwealth of Virginia. We have to produce a clean power plan. It has to be based on science, and it has to be legal. And I think this bill has huge constitutional problems, separation of the executive and the legislative branch, and so I would hope we would sustain the governor's veto. And you know, I think one very wise man once told me, he was the best county executive we ever had in Fairfax. He says, the legislative branch can tell me, you know, to paint the barn, but they shouldn't be telling me where to buy the paint. You know, we have a clean power plan we have to put together. It's the executive branch's job. They have the scientists to do it. We shouldn't be messing around with this. Let's sustain the governor's veto.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Henrico, Senator McEachin.
Mr. President, I rise for a parliamentary inquiry.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, it's time for our annual review of how to vote. Mr. President, would you inform the body of how you intend to pose the question on this issue?
If the Senate wishes to sustain the governor's veto, you would vote no. If you want to support the bill as it was enrolled, you would vote yes. And there need to be 27 yeses to override the governor's veto.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Rising to speak to the motion. First of all, I ask myself, why am I speaking? I'm not entirely sure. Secondly, understanding your explanation of how to vote, I appreciate very much that you would encourage everyone to vote in the affirmative. That would be 27 of us, so that we could speak with a unified voice, not a 21-19 voice, which is not unified. But speaking of the whys, I haven't been around as long as Father Time that sometimes we refer to as Senator Saslaw. But as I look at the governor's message on this, I was particularly Father Time woke up. I was particularly attracted as to another why, and it was the last line in his veto message, which appeared to not be so much as a constitutional explanation, but I cannot in good conscience sign a bill that would violate the Constitution of Virginia. And I say, why are we editorializing in these veto comments? So 27 votes would be most appreciative.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Loudoun, Senator Black.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak to the measure.
Senator has the floor.
Why? I just have to say, you know, one of the most enduring and massive investments that our nation has made is in its power plants. These are a huge, huge investment that lasts for generations. And the idea of suddenly mothballing a massive portion of our industrial capacity and doing it on the flimsiest of evidence is really not a wise decision. And I think this bill certainly gives us the option of taking the time to find out what will the court say, and then we can make the decision at that point. But I don't think we should take precipitous action, and I think that we should not sustain the governor's veto.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, supporting, I guess it would be supporting the governor's veto, voting red in this particular case. Mr. President, federal law requires the governor to come up with a plan to comply with the Federal Clean Power Act. And Clean Power Plan under federal law. And the governor, of course, has delegated that in the executive branch to the director of the Department of Environmental Quality. Mr. President, what this bill would do would divest or prohibit the Department of Environmental Quality from submitting any plan at all that's Virginia-specific, which is in our interest to have a Virginia-specific plan. And to do so would be to violate federal law and to divest the governor of the authority that he's been delegated from the federal government. So, Mr. President, this would undercut the whole idea of having a Virginia specific plan under the Clean Power to come up with a Clean Power Plan under federal law. It would deny the right of DEQ to have a Virginia-specific plan. And I think it's in our interest of the Commonwealth of Virginia, to have a Virginia-specific plan. And only the DEQ can do this. This 140-body General Assembly couldn't possibly do this. What this would do is simply politicize what really should be left to the experts in using science and the techniques and understandings of modern science to come up with a plan that complies with the federal law. So, Mr. President, the governor's absolutely right. This would violate the Constitution of Virginia, divest him of authority he's been delegated by the federal government, and take away from those that are in the best position to make these decisions and put it in the hands of an unwieldy 140 body that cannot possibly come up with the kinds of detailed plans that are required. It would politicize the process unduly, and Mr. President, I would hope we vote red in this case. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Buckingham, Senator Garrett.
Mr. President, I apologize, and I'll be brief. It makes my skin crawl when I hear about power that's delegated to the governor of Virginia from the federal government. I would commend the body to study just briefly federalism and understand where power comes from and who it goes to. Instead, what we're going to do is give away the power that we have to the federal government, which is how this works. And Mr. President, I would ask the senator from Russell if he'd yield briefly for a question.
I'm sorry, which senator?
For Russell County.
Thank you. Would the senator from Russell County yield?
I yield.
Yield, Senator.
I asked the senator what economic impacts might flow from an adoption of this, or from a failure to override this bill in planning districts 1, 2, and 3. Could you explain it to us? Because I don't live there.
The senator from
What
Russell.
economically?
Mr. President, I would say that those planning districts are currently having a disproportionate loss of economic earnings as a result of the war that is currently against coal, as a result of the market forces against coal and other energy forms. And I would say that the losses are not in the millions of dollars, but in the billions of dollars that will result.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the bill pass in the enrolled form, notwithstanding the objections of the governor? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19, needing 27 votes. The enrolled form of the bill does not pass.
Uncontested calendar House bills on third reading.
Senator from James City County, Senator.
Before we take that up, if we could accept a communication from the House, please.
Thank you. Sergeant at Arms. Please. Delegate Lupasi, thanks for visiting.
Mr. President, I've been directed by the Speaker of the House of Delegates to inform the Senate that the House of Delegates has agreed to HJR 424 relating to the election of a Supreme Court of Virginia Justice and request the concurrence of the Senate.
Thank you, Delegate. The desk will receive it.
Uncontested calendar House bills on third reading.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I respectfully move that all the House bills on the third reading on the uncontested calendar, which would include all House bills on pages 14 through 28, including House Bill 98 through House Bill 1376, be placed on their final passage in the block after the adoption of any amendments. Any senator desiring to remove a House bill from the block should please do so after the clerk has read the number of that bill, sir.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, show House bills on the uncontested calendar, third reading, pages 14 through 28, House Bill 98 through House Bill 1376, be placed upon their final passage in a block after the adoption of any amendments thereto, with the understanding that any senator desiring a bill removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The bills are before us in the block. The clerk will please read the number of the bills.
House Bill 98, the committee substitute, has been adopted by the Senate.
Senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. President. With reluctance, I ask just this go by for one more day, please.
Without objection, House Bill 98 will go by for the day.
House Bill 16, reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor. House Bill 64, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with amendment and from the Committee on Finance.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the amendment by the Committee on Courts of Justice be agreed to.
Question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 87, reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor. House Bill 240, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 256, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 307, reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor. House Bill 393, reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor with the substitute.
The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, I move the committee substitute be agreed to.
Question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 420, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 499, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 568, reported from the Committee on Finance with a substitute.
The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee substitute be agreed to.
Question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 675, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 700, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 707, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology with a substitute.
Senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee substitute be.
Question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 711, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 735, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 741, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 786, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology with a substitute.
The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
I move the committee substitute.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 817, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology.
Mr. President,
The senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
could that bill be removed from the block and go by for the day?
That's House Bill 817, Senator.
Yes, sir.
Without objection, House Bill 817 will come out of the block and by for the day.
House Bill 818, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 820, reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor. House Bill 851, reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor. House Bill 910, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 1012, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 1013, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1052, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology with amendment.
The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Mr. President, I move the committee amendment.
Question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1108, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1135, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1146, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1166, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill...
The senator from Buckingham, Senator Garrett.
Can 1166 come out of the block, please?
I'm sorry, 1166, Senator?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Thank you.
Without objection, House Bill 1166 will come out of the block.
House Bill 1228, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology with an amendment.
Senator from Mecklenburg.
Mr. President, I move the committee amendment.
Question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1238, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology with amendment.
The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Mr. President, I move the committee amendment.
Question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1259, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1260, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1263, reported for the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1264, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1288, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1289, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology with a substitute.
The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Mr. President, I move the committee substitute be.
Question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1318, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1345, reported from the Committee on Finance with an amendment.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that the committee amendments be agreed to.
Question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1376, reported from the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The question is, shall the House bills pass in block? That is, all bills except for 98, 817, and 1166. All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, no 0. The bills in the block pass. Returning to page 24. The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peter.
Having voted on the prevailing side by which we just passed the uncontested block, I move we reconsider that vote.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the vote by which the Senate agreed to all of the uncontested bills in the block be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 0.
Ayes 36, no 0. The motion is agreed to. The question is, shall the House bills in block pass? That is, all bills except for 98, 817. Senator from Fairfax City. The Senate will stand at ease.
Mr. Doesn't, then we'll strike the board.
I thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the House bills pass in block? That is, all bills except for 98, 817, and 1166. All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote?
Mr. President?
Has Senator Stanley been on this side of the aisle?
Let's strike the board, and the Senate will stand at ease.
Mr. President, I'm going to respectfully ask that the Senate stand in recess until 1:30, and I would yield to the senator from Rockingham.
Mr. President, upon recess, I would ask to convene a meeting of the Courts of Justice Committee at my desk.
Thank you, Senator. The Senate will stand in recess until 1:30. The Senate will come to order. When we last met, we were attempting to pass the uncontested bills on third reading in block. So that's where we will resume. The question is...
If I could have everyone's attention first. We are having a major issue with static electricity in here today, and that's what blew the board. So before you touch your voting button, please touch the brass plate around your microphone, and then ground yourself. Why? Because I said so.
Madam Clerk.
Mom has spoken.
Madam Clerk, the pediatric neurologist take care of electrical.
We'll keep that in mind, Senator. So everyone, please ground yourselves. If not, see Senator Alexander.
All right.
Okay.
The question is, shall the House bills pass in block? That is, all bills except for 98, 817, and 1166. All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The bills in the block pass. Returning to page 24, House Bill 1166, the senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill pass. This bill is identical to Senate Bill 362. It deals with small purchase procurement of transportation-related projects, provides that a public body may establish purchase procedures not requiring competitive sealed bids or competitive negotiation for single or term contracts for transportation related to construction if the aggregate or sum of all phases is not to exceed $25,000.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1166 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 4.
Ayes 36, noes 4. The bill passes.
Turning to page 28, regular calendar House bills on third reading. House Bill 158, a bill relating to grass cutting in certain counties. Reported from the Committee on Local Government.
Senator from Franklin, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can that go by temporarily?
Without objection, House Bill 158 will go by temporarily.
Move it.
House Bill 481, a bill relating to compliance with detainers, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Criminal Injuries Compensation Fund. Reported from the Committee the Committee Substitute and Floor Amendment have been adopted by the Senate.
Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a bill that was brought up in the committee that had to do with, that would direct the Director of Department of Corrections or other officials in charge of such facility in which a alien is incarcerated who receives a lawful detainer now from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and it shall that individual shall not be released except to transfer custody of the alien to another facility or U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, provided that no alien may be held in custody in excess of the date that he or she would otherwise be released from custody. It codifies a requirement given to the Department of Corrections by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement to hold aliens for additional time if they're under retainer. And I would yield to the senior senator from Loudoun for further questions, Mr. President. And I would ask the passage of the bill.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, did you want to speak to the bill as well?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. The bill makes quite clear that no one can be held beyond their sentence date. And that is the important thing. And we're only talking about people who are being held on or who are subject to a detainer because they have committed criminal acts. And so I hope that you will pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak against the bill.
Has the floor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this bill actually had a couple different lives in our committee. It was killed at one point, then brought back. And the bottom line is the existing law is actually pretty simple and pretty easily to follow for sheriffs. What we're doing, if we change it, is almost contradictory. We're telling them that they cannot release a subject or an inmate that has a detainer on them, but if it's subject to ICE, but that's saying if ICE doesn't come and pick them up, we can't keep them past their lawful custody date. So it literally is internally inconsistent. I mean, if they're on a detainer from ICE, they already can be released to ICE. We've already made that perfectly clear in the existing law. I think if we go forward with this amendment, or excuse me, this amendment to the statute, this bill, we're basically telling them that they can hold people under detainer even if they've already served their sentence, which of course is unconstitutional and goes against what we normally do. So I don't think the sheriffs were crazy about this bill to begin with. I don't think even when it was amended, it really makes it any better, and I hope we defeat the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the senior senator from Loudoun yield for a question?
Would the senior senator from Loudoun yield for a question?
I yield.
He yields, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. What bothers me is, I guess, line 16, where the sentence says that, however, if a federal or state law requires that such an alien be held in custody until transferred to a federal authority, as I read that, and I believe many sheriffs are reading it, the interpretation is that, in fact, our local jails would have to hold these individuals until ICE actually picked them up. Is that your reading of this language?
I understand the gentlelady's question. The situation that contemplates is a situation where we have an individual who is in confinement, and perhaps it is determined while he is in confinement and while there is a detainer out for him that he has committed serial rape of several people. Something not having anything to do with why the detainer is out there, but a reason that independently of this bill or anything would require that they hold him because of that. That's the reason for that particular line. It doesn't really relate to the detainer itself. It simply says, although under the detainer does not give you authority to hold them beyond their term of service. They've got to be released. However, there is another reason that somebody could be held, and that was the purpose in that language.
Mr. President, speaking to the bill and speaking to the motion,
Senator has the floor.
The way the senior senator explained the bill, it sounds like the bill is not needed because under current practice, our sheriffs hold individuals as long as they're supposed to be held according to whatever state or federal statute would be governing why the individual is even in jail to begin with. And if in fact ICE is contacted, the sheriffs will only hold the individual constitutionally based on the amount of time that would be associated with whatever the legal process is for the crime they allegedly committed. So that's our current practice. And I believe that this adds an element of confusion because I think our local governments and our sheriffs are reading this to mean that the intent of this language is to keep an individual beyond whatever state or federal law might suggest, because the ICE information is interjected, and you know ICE has lots of people on their database, they issue lots of detainers, and they say, you know, just keep these individuals, and yet local governments do not have the space or the money to keep them, and ICE doesn't pick them up. So I see no purpose for this bill because the local governments are already conducting their business the way we had just explained, and I think this would be very, very confusing. So I ask that the body vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, first, with regard to this bill, our state and local authorities are not ICE. They're not the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. That's a federal law, federal agency, and they have their responsibilities with regard to immigration issues. The problem arises when ICE does not pick them up. The local authorities notify ICE, nothing happens. And this bill, I think what it attempts to do, although somewhat confusing, but probably this is why the sheriffs don't like it, that they're required to release a person based on the judge's order of bail bond, for example, or whatever. Under state or local law, they should release a person. And there's ICE out there who hadn't come to pick up anybody. And so this bill, it seems to me, it tries to say, well, if ICE is not doing its job, let's do the job for them. And I know the localities don't want to do that. They don't have the resources to do that. They shouldn't do that. If ICE is not going to do its job, it's not going to do its job. That's a problem for ICE. But I think this bill tries to solve a problem which I'm not sure constitutionally can solve. And again, we're not, the state and local authorities are not ICE, and we shouldn't try to pretend that we are. Thank you. So I hope the body would vote no. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 481 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. The bill passes.
House Bill 879, a bill relating to alcoholic beverage control, farm wineries, and limited brewery licenses, land and agricultural. Reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with a substitute, and there is a floor substitute.
The senior senator from Loudoun, Senator Black.
Thank you, Mr. President. I withdraw that floor substitute.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, the floor substitute will be withdrawn. The senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. While we've tried desperately to come to an agreement on this bill is similar in nature to the bill that Senator Barker had that left this body. In terms of agreement with all those involved in this bill, what we're hoping to do is get it out of here and get it to committee of conference to correct those discrepancies between the individuals. But this is the brewery bill has very specific in nature, having to deal with a specific issue in Northern Virginia, and then I would ask the bill pass.
Senator, we need to move that substitute first.
Mr. President, I move the committee substitute.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. The senator from Spotsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having previously explained it, ask the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 879 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 4.
Ayes 36, noes 4. The bill passes.
House Bill 703, a bill relating to legal age for marriage, emancipation petitions for minors intending to marry, written findings. Reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute that has been adopted by the Senate.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass, and I would happily yield to the senator from Fauquier.
Senator from Fauquier County, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too move the bill pass, and speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a bill that the members of this body have heard a little bit about before. I carried the same bill on the Senate side, and it passed out of this body with a pretty solid majority. And I would just like to speak a little bit to the bill, because I suspect there'll be a little bit of additional floor debate on it today. But just to remind the body, I brought this bill after doing a little bit of research that really shocked me, and frankly would shock the conscience if you read some of the stories about the things that have happened in the Commonwealth of Virginia in 2010, in 2012, in 2015, and 2016. And frankly, Virginia's current marriage laws are not protecting children. And when I say children, I don't mean 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds, which some of us think of as children, but I mean 13-year-olds and 12-year-olds. And so if you fundamentally believe that a child who is 12 years old or 13 years old who shows up at the circuit court who's pregnant, that someone shouldn't be asking, are you a victim of rape? Are there major issues going on here? If you fundamentally believe that it's just a circuit court clerk should just give you a piece of paper and grant you a marriage license, and you think that's okay, well, fine, then you can vote against this bill. But I would urge you to give this a little more consideration and consider that this is a good bill, that it's been worked through very carefully, and we've really balanced the interests of children, families, and frankly, the opportunity to enter into a loving marriage at an appropriate age. And if you are young, if you are 16 or 17 years old and you go before a judge and you go through an emancipation proceeding where a judge gets to determine whether or not it's in your best interest, and the judge determines that it is and then emancipates you and puts you in a position where you then can make decisions for yourself, you can obtain a protective order, you can look out for your health and safety, you can go to a shelter and actually put yourself in a position to look out for your safety, then you can enter into a marriage. And what we're doing is we're raising the threshold. And I understand there are legitimate reasons to say, well, you know what, we don't want to make this as a public policy decision. We'd like to, maybe let parents make that decision. And I understand that. That's the biggest argument against this bill, is that somehow we're stepping in the position of parents. But where I have struggled with this, and when I considered bringing this bill and considered what some of the countervailing considerations are, in each of the situations where I was shocked by what happened to these children, the parents were the issue. It was the parents who were helping to cover up or otherwise not looking out for the best interest of the child, and were allowing this marriage to happen. And what we're allowing to happen in many of these cases is letting children get married and using the marriage, the act of marriage, the marriage license as the veil to cover up abuse, to prevent people from being prosecuted, and to frankly perpetuate a situation where a child who is 13 or 14 years old is now married and is put in a situation, whether the marriage is coerced or whether they think they're entering into this marriage for good reasons, what happens to that child is really, in many cases, really tragic. They don't complete their education. They are not really in a very stable marriage to begin with. And all of the things and the opportunities that we would like to afford that child are very, very often undermined. And so I would just ask the body to consider that this is a good bill. And I understand that, reasonable minds may disagree about what is in the best interest of a child, but it's an important bill, and I would just urge the body to consider passage of the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak against the bill. If I might, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, and this is an unusual position to take. I actually have daughters this age. There are situations where somebody who's 17 years old has every reason to get married. It happens that daughters or children that age, sometimes they do get pregnant, and sometimes they would rather have that child within the bonds of wedlock. But instead of making that decision within the family, we would now entrust that decision to a justice of the peace. Well, what if the justice of the peace decides to say no? Are we going to force that young person, 17 years old, maybe 16 years old, to basically have that child out of wedlock? Again, I understand this situation, and if this bill had been written to a different age group, I would perfectly understand it. But I just feel like we went one step too far in this bill. I think, if we wanted to make this standard for 16, fine. But again, I think in our society and through history, we've had plenty of people that were 17 years old that, for whatever reason, decided to get married. And let's face it, there are a lot of different ways of abusing a child other than marrying them, okay? that tends to show more of a commitment than someone who's would be an abuser. So I just feel like this bill is one step too far, and I think we're going to put some child in the impossible task of essentially requiring them to bear a child out of wedlock.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Buckingham, Senator Garrett.
Mr. President, I adopt the comments of the senator from Fairfax City. The intent of the bill is excellent. I've worked on criminal cases that mirrored some of the facts that the senator from Fauquier articulated, but what we've done here is, by targeting the age so high, we've removed an option. Generally speaking, these marriages at these ages in this day and age are precipitated by someone becoming pregnant, and right now the current options are to carry the child to term and put it up for adoption, to carry the child to term and go through life as a single mother, an abortion, or marriage. And we heard testimony in committee that the outcomes for young women who were pregnant at such tender ages as 15, 16 were bad, were really bad. And I would believe that they indeed are. But that is notwithstanding whether they're married or not. In fact, once you're pregnant at age 15, the outcomes are probably mathematically going to be bad most of the time, whether there's a marriage or not. What we do, though, is remove the option of marriage from the choices that that young person might have, and, as the senator from Fairfax City articulated so well, replace the purview, the insight, the judgment of the parents with that of the court. Now, there are certainly horrible parents who make poor decisions, who might even undermine circumstances wherein an older person is preying on a much, much younger person. There is an avenue to address this. I would say that I've done that as a prosecutor in the past. But I want to point out one thing that came out in testimony as it related to this bill, and it was actually by a proponent. And the question was, have any other states adopted a policy that was this broad, this draconian with these ages? And the answer was, well, a lot of states have done some stuff that's similar, but nobody's done this. Nobody's done this. So I admire the patron and the patron of the Senate version, and I understand the motive behind the bill, but I think what we're doing is taking away an option that in some cases might be a very good option from young people who find themselves in a very difficult position. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 703 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes. Aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 33, noes 7.
Ayes 33, noes 7. The bill passes.
House Bill 875, a bill related...
For what purpose does the senator rise?
I apologize, Mr. President. Having voted on the prevailing side by which we just passed House Bill 703, I'd like to reconsider that vote.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the vote by which House Bill 703 was passed be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their votes. Aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 37, noes 3.
Ayes 37, noes 3. The motion is agreed to. The senator from Rockingham, if you could make another motion. Thank you, Senator. Senator from Fauquier.
Mr. President, having been previously explained, I move the bill's passage.
The question is, shall House Bill 703 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes. Aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 32, noes 8.
Ayes 32, noes 8. The bill passes.
House Bill 875, a bill relating to disclosure of real-time location data in emergencies, reported for the Committee for Courts of Justice.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. And speaking of the bill, I explained this briefly yesterday, and there were some questions raised about what this bill does and doesn't cover. As you remember, it's a bill that allows law enforcement agencies, in the case of an emergency, to request a cellular telephone company to provide location data. And I would point out a couple of things. First of all, it is going to allow the telephone companies to provide that data. Second of all, it does not relate to really folks other than telephone companies. There was some question about whether it related to tracking devices that we've regulated in other instances, and Mr. President, it does not. I would also give you a little bit of background on this. This is known as the Kelsey Smith Act, and it's named after a 18-year-old young woman. Her name was Kelsey Smith, and she was abducted in broad daylight from a Target store in Overland, Kansas in 2007. About 3 hours after she was abducted, her car was found in the Target parking lot, and her family and her friends asked the police to begin searching for her. About an hour after Kelsey was kidnapped, a signal from her cell phone was picked up. Law enforcement officials reached out to her cellular telephone company and asked for the ping records that would help locate her location via her cell phone. The cellular telephone company did not do it. It refused. And it was not until about 3 days later that they turned over the records. And when they did turn over the records, it took authorities only 45 minutes. It took them 45 minutes to be able to locate Kelsey. Unfortunately, what they located was her dead body. She was found dead after being raped and murdered. Kelsey's parents have been working on this piece of legislation that has been adopted in more than 20 states. It has saved lives, and it has the capacity to save lives here in Virginia. So, Mr. President, with that further explanation as to the background, I hope that that provides a little bit more of the context in which this piece of legislation was offered by the delegate from Fairfax. And it would be my hope that the members of the body would pass this good piece of legislation, especially, Mr. President, coming on a day just following the really emotional events of the past couple of days in Charlottesville. This has the real ability to address the heartache of parents. It has the real ability to save lives of our kids on college campuses and elsewhere. So it would be my hope that this bill will pass.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak against the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I thank the gentleman from Rockingham for his explanation, but I don't think it has much to do with the actual text of this bill. The actual text of this bill deals with what we already have, which is an exception to the requirement that you have to get a search warrant before you can obtain data. And the exception that we have on the books right now is where a police officer reasonably believes that an emergency exists, and that is also accepted in good faith by the emergency, the person the disclosure has been required from. And you might ask, well, why should they have a role? Well, of course, they hold the data. And the bottom line is, normally, you go and get a search warrant. If you want to go obtain data from somebody, it's their property, their data. You can't just request it. You have to go and get a search warrant from it. That's really the whole point of the Fourth Amendment. And we had this exception written into the code, but it was very carefully crafted as an exception to the warrant requirement. And what this bill does is essentially gut it by saying, now anytime a police officer reasonably believes an emergency exists, they can request this cell tower data. Well, I mean, anyone want to come forward and have a police officer say they unreasonably want something? Of course not. Anytime, by definition, they request something that's going to be reasonable. So the bottom line is we had a sort of a system of checks and balances which has been on the books for at least a couple years. And the whole idea is, as you know, we've got this new technology. We're trying to put some limits so there are some Fourth Amendment parameters around it. Because, again, all you have to do is go and get a search warrant. There are magistrates available 24/7. But the bottom line is, if we adopt this, I'm not going to say it's the end of the world, but it will be certainly one step in the rollback of the Fourth Amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Loudoun, Senator Black.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of points. While I agree with the gentleman about the, the warrant, it's always best to obtain a warrant. But because we cannot always do it in a timely fashion, Fourth Amendment jurisprudence has always recognized the concept of exigent circumstances in which a law enforcement officer can take action because there simply is not time without risking life or limb. My nephew is a major with the Florida Highway Patrol, and one of his more distressing days was where they got a call from a woman who had dementia, and she had driven off and she had gotten lost, and it was a blistering hot day, and she just finally drove until she stopped and she didn't know what to do, and somehow she was able to make a call, and she was able to get them on the line and to say, I don't know what to do. And they said, well, just open the door and, and let yourself out, get out of the car. And she was not able to do that. She was so confused that she couldn't get out of the car. And they talked her through it, and they struggled to get her to understand what to do. Can you tell us where you are? She couldn't say where she was, and eventually she died. And he was very devastated by the fact that this had happened. And it's one of those things. I really believe in privacy, and I think people ought to be able to have privacy, but there are certain circumstances that we call exigent circumstances where there is not time. There was no time. This woman the temperature was soaring in that car, and she was totally confused. She couldn't get out. What do? Sometimes you just have to take action, and I think we need to allow for exigent circumstances, and this bill does that. So I hope that you'll pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Prince William County, Senator McPake.
Mr. President, speaking for the bill.
Senator has the floor.
I'm speaking in favor of this bill. As a parent of 3 girls, frankly, our oldest girl, when she got to middle school, we bought her a cell phone. And we bought her cell phone for emergencies and protection. I'm voting in favor of this bill. I understand the concerns here, but this clearly delineates involving the immediate danger to a person. This qualifies. I'm voting for this bill and for every parent who's also bought their kid a cell phone for this exact reason. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, am I in a position to wrap this up?
Absolutely, Senator.
All right. Mr. President, just very briefly, what I would say are a couple of things. Number one, search warrants are not available 24/7 in Virginia. Some places they are. A lot of places around Virginia, they just aren't. You just can't get a magistrate, can't get in. Second of all, I would point out that in response to comments about Fourth Amendment protections. If I didn't prove that I'm a constitutional purist yesterday, I don't know what else I can do. What I would say is there really isn't a Fourth Amendment issue here. We're not asking, and specifically we're carving out personalized information, the content of any communication. What we're asking is that Verizon or T-Mobile or whatever the telephone company is to provide its information. To the extent anybody has a right to privacy, it would be the telephone company with respect to that. I hate to tell you this, but look at your subscriber agreements. It is not your information. And this bill is going to save lives. It does not compromise our First and Fourth Amendment rights. And finally, what I would suggest is, I know that there has been, some suggestion that maybe we adopt an exclusionary rule or something. Anybody who's found, any information that's found pursuant to this would be excluded. What I'd say is, think about that. Think about it for a second. Kelsey Smith, how'd they find her body? They found it through those records. And if we adopt some kind of an exclusionary rule, the body of a victim of a crime couldn't be used as evidence in a prosecution against the perpetrator. And we've got classic examples of that in the news on the front pages of our newspapers right now here in Virginia today. This is common sense legislation. It's going to save lives. I'd urge the body to pass it.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 875 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 35, noes 5.
Ayes 35, noes 5. The bill passes.
House Bill 1348, a bill relating to smoking in motor vehicles, presence of minor under age 8, civil penalty. Reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice.
Senator from Russell, Senator Chafin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I spoke about this bill yesterday to the body, and it got taken by for the day. And I'll just remind you that what the bill does, it prohibits individuals, adult individuals, from smoking in an automobile when there are children in the automobile who are under the age of 8. It creates a civil penalty, not a criminal penalty, of $100, and it creates a situation where it's a secondary offense, meaning that the vehicle can't be stopped on account of the suspicion of a police officer that someone's smoking in their vehicle with a child under the age of 8. They would have to be stopped by for some other reason, such as speeding or running a red light. And I tell you that this bill, if I may speak to the bill,
yes, sir.
It is a bill that has come of time. We have all kinds of laws that protect our youth while people are operating automobiles. Automobiles can be dangerous. They can be dangerous when they're in the hands of someone under the use of drugs, or when someone is drinking and driving. And they're dangerous because they're a confined space when someone is smoking. And we know there's all kinds of scientific evidence. I'll remind you that I told you yesterday that the medical journals show that the concentrations of secondhand smoke in a confined space of an automobile is 27 times more dense than in other settings and other situations. So the science is there. Our children deserve to be protected. They're young. Their lungs are developing. They're youthful. And we have an obligation to these children to look at the facts and the science that is there when parents should be doing this, but they're not in all cases. I urge you to pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Gentleman, yield for a question.
Senator from Russell, yield for a question.
I will yield.
He yields, Senator.
I would ask the gentleman, if I'm sitting in the front seat of my car smoking a cigarette and my child's in the back seat, and I open my door right in the path of an oncoming bicyclist so that he rams into it, can the fines be aggregated?
Senator from Russell can.
Mr. President, I would think they can be if that offense is committed in the presence of an officer.
I thank the gentleman.
Thank you, Senators. The question is, shall House Bill 1348 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, nor are the senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 27, noes 12.
Ayes 27, noes 12. The bill passes.
House Bill 2, a bill to require the Department of Environmental Quality to receive approval from the General Assembly for a state plan to regulate carbon dioxide emissions from existing stationary sources prior to admitting the state plan to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for approval. Reported from the Committee on Finance.
Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 2 deals with the Clean Power Plan. I move its passage, and I would say, Mr. President, that it is identical to a bill previously on the calendar today that had been vetoed by the governor. So if you ask the question why you should vote for this, I would refer the matter, or I would yield to the senator from Russell.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. The bill passes.
House Bill 220, a bill relating to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, public access to resumes and other information related to gubernatorial appointments, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology.
The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill pass. Speaking to the bill,
Senator has the floor.
House Bill 220 provides that personnel, working papers, correspondence record exceptions shall not be construed to be authorize the withholding of any, withholding of any resumes or applications submitted for appointment by the governor. The bill further provides that the resumes for appointment by the governor shall be available to the public upon request. Its provisions apply to those appointed after July 1st, 2016.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Thank you. Speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
I would just tell the body that this bill is about more than resumes. It's about an application that the governor accepts from appointees with sometimes sensitive information. When I was a political appointee, it asked questions like it does today. Have you ever experienced credit difficulties? Have you ever had been convicted or entered a plea of guilty or forfeited collateral for a criminal violation other than a minor traffic offense? So if you had a minor offense 15 or 20 years ago, or if your child's spouse or someone you recommend for a board or commission did, or if they ever had a credit difficulty, would this discourage them from applying? If it was just resumes and we knew what their background was, that's one thing. But this is about sensitive information in many cases for more than 3,600 Virginians. And it could cause them either from being available to serve the Commonwealth or not, or discourage them from being candid. Another unintended consequence of the bill could be to have this information no longer sought on this form. So thousands of these appointments are for unpaid citizen memberships on boards or commissions. Those are very different than being a judge. So if you want to limit the pool of those who would apply, I would say to vote for the bill. If you want to continue to get a good applicant pool with the governor having some discretion over ones who perhaps could present a difficulty, I would encourage you to vote against the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 220 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, nor are the senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 23, noes 17.
Ayes 23, noes 17. The bill passes.
House Bill 476, a bill relating to requiring submission of animal intake policy, reported for the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources with amendments, and from the Committee on Finance with a substitute.
The senator from Stafford, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the recommendation that the amendment be rejected, I would move that we concur with the amendment from the Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Senator. With the recommendation that it be rejected, the question is, shall the amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is rejected. The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Finance Committee substitute be adopted.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. The senator from Augusta.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute just clarified the intent of the bill, and what the bill does is require releasing agencies, animal control officers, and humane investigators to include a description of their animal intake policy in their annual report to the state veterinarian. I move the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 476 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 34, noes 5, Rule 36-1.
Ayes 34, noes 5, Rule 36-1, the bill passes.
House Bill 685, a bill relating to direct primary care agreements, reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor with a substitute.
The senator from Virginia, senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, I move the committee substitute be agreed to.
Question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. The senior senator.
Mr. President, I ask that bill go by for the day.
Without objection, House Bill 685 will go by for the day.
House Bill 823, a bill relating to governmental agencies contracting for items listed on commercial activities list, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology.
The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the bill pass. Speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
House Bill 823 provides that any state agency that purchases goods or services from another governmental agency shall place the purchasing order for such goods and services on the Department of General Services Central Electronic Procurement System.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 823 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The bill passes.
House Bill 1016, a bill relating to sexual assault response team participants' exclusion from Freedom of Information Act, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology with amendment.
The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee amendment.
Question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The senator from Mecklenburg.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. And speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
This bill adds several participants from colleges to participate in sexual assault response teams. The amendment rewrites the records exemption to provide that what is exempt from mandatory disclosure provisions of FOIA is any information reflecting the substance of meetings in which individual sexual assault cases are discussed by any sexual assault team. In addition, the amendment provides that the finding of the team may be disclosed or published in statistical or other aggregated form, but does not include the identity of specific individuals.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1016 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The bill passes.
House Bill 1053, a bill to direct the State Corporation Commission to evaluate the establishment of protocols for energy efficiency programs implemented by investor-owned electric utilities report. Reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor with amendments.
The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, I move we adopt the committee amendment.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The senior senator.
Mr. President, I move the House Bill 1053 pass. And speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, the Senate House Bill 1053 establishes protocols for various energy efficiency programs that we've implemented throughout the years. We really have gotten no feedback on those programs as to the effectiveness of the programs vis-a-vis the cost of those programs. So this bill asks the State Corporation Commission to look at that, develop some protocols, develop some measurings along with the Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy, and report back to us by the 1st of December of this year. With that explanation, I renew my motion to bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1053 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The bill passes.
House Bill 1237, a bill relating to the Richmond Metropolitan Transportation Authority powers, reported from the Committee on Finance.
Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Just a second here, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move the bill pass. And speaking to the bill, this bill amends the authority of the Richmond Metropolitan Transportation Authority to allow them to own and operate civic buildings such as the Coliseum, and there's language in there to do that in addition to their primary transportation responsibilities. I move the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1237 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 35, noes 4.
Ayes 35, noes 4. The bill passes.
House Bill 1291, a bill relating to the Virginia Lottery, ticket carrier services prohibited. Reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology.
Senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. And speaking to the motion,
Senator has the floor.
This deals with operations that are called ticket courier services. The bill provides that those services that operate for the purpose of purchasing Virginia lottery tickets on behalf of individuals located within or outside the Commonwealth and transmitting such tickets or electronic images, therefore, as a for-profit delivery service. There have been several companies that have been buying tickets for people outside the state, outside the country, and sending them a photocopy or a other transmission dealing with the, without actually buying the ticket as such.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Roanoke County, Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Mr. President. As those of you who review the journal or the calendar, you'll see I'm the only no recorded on this. I'm not going to tell you why you should all join me in this, but this was considered at the end of the General Laws meeting the other day, and some of you who actually spoke against the companion bill had left proxies with folks who have voted you now in favor of the bill. So if you had, I didn't speak to the bill in committee, but some of you did, and if you want to keep the same position that you articulated at that time, you might just want to pay attention and vote no as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1291 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 31, noes none.
Ayes 31, noes 9. The bill passes. Madam Clerk, if we could return to page 28. House Bill 158, the senator from Franklin, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move that House Bill 158 pass, and speaking to that motion, sir.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I know that many of you, after voting one time, want to mow this bill over. I know that I'm standing here, Mr. President, and I look like a John Deere in the headlights. I'm hoping that maybe my weak attempt at humor might make you reconsider your vote the first time. Because House Bill 158 is a grass-cutting bill. Yes, it is true. It is a grass-cutting bill, but it is a grass-cutting bill of a different order. This is not one of those grass-cutting bills that allows certain localities to mow your grass if you don't mow your grass, although it's contained right there in that part of the code that allows that. This is actually a very narrowly drawn subdivision C to the existing statute that this ordinance could be applicable in Caroline County only to land that is zoned for agricultural use on those portions of the land that are assessed for residential use. So it would be a very small area of a larger area. And Caroline County, I understand, has asked for this provision so that it can keep the wonderful county of Caroline looking as beautiful as it looks today. And for those reasons, Mr. President, I renew my motion that the bill, House Bill 158, pass.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Stafford, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking to this bill,
Senator has the floor.
Yeah, Mr. President, I typically, if one jurisdiction wants something, I try to support it because I hope they'll do the same for me if my jurisdiction does. But I got to tell you, this is a really bad precedent to set. What this bill says is they can force you to cut your grass in your hayfield. And that's not really what we want to do with grass cutting ordinances. And I believe that's what this bill says. If it's agriculturally zoned land and they use a portion of it for residential use, they can force you to cut everything out there. And I think that's just going too far. And I'm afraid if you start it for one, maybe it's going to spread. So I hope we defeat this bill.
Thank you, Senator. Shall House Bill 158 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 18, noes 22.
Ayes 18, noes 22, needing 27 votes, the bill does not pass.
Uncontested calendar, House bills on second reading.
The senator from James City County, Senator Norment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would now move that all the House bills on the second reading on both the uncontested and regular calendar, which would include all House bills on pages 35 through 47, including House Bill 47 through House Bill 114, that the rules of the Senate be suspended and that the second constitutional reading of the titles be dispensed with.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the second reading of the titles of House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 35 through 47, House Bill 47 through House Bill 1114, be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The reading of the titles is dispensed with. The senator from James City County, Senator Norment.
Mr. President, I would now move that the third constitutional reading of the title of all of the House bills that find themselves on the third reading on pages 35 through 47 be dispensed with.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House bills now on the uncontested calendar, third reading, pages 35 through 45, House Bill 47 through House Bill 1255, be placed upon their final passage in a block?
Third reading to be dispensed with.
Uncontested calendar. I think he may not want to do it. He didn't care, and I don't care. So whatever you want to do, I don't really care.
What?
It's not a bill I have any interest in.
Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize for confusing you. Mr. President, I would now move that all of the House bills which previously found themselves on the second reading but now find themselves on the third reading on the uncontested calendar, which would include all House bills on pages 35 through 45, I believe, be placed on their final passage in the block after the adoption of any amendments. Any senator who desires to remove a bill from the block should please do so after the clerk has read the number of that bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House bills now on the uncontested calendar, third reading, pages 35 through 45, House Bill 47 through House Bill 1255, be placed upon their final passage in the block after the adoption of any amendments thereto, with the understanding that any senator desiring a bill removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The bills are before us in the block. The clerk will please read the number of the bills.
House Bill 47, reported from the Committee on Finance with a substitute.
The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger. Question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. The senior senator from Loudoun.
Mr. President, could that come out of the block, please?
Without objection, House Bill 47 will come out of the block.
House Bill 177, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute and from the Committee on Finance.
The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Mr. President, I move that the substitute from the Committee on Courts of Justice be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 180, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with an amendment and from the Committee on Finance with amendments.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenchain.
Mr. President, I guess I would first move that the amendment from the Committee on Courts of Justice be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Courts of Justice amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The senator from Augusta.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee amendments from the Finance Committee be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Finance Committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are agreed to.
House Bill 287, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 364, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 367, reported from the Committee on Local Government with amendment.
Senator from Franklin, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move that the committee amendment be agreed to.
Question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 450, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 610, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute, and from the Committee on Finance with a substitute.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenchain.
Mr. President, with a recommendation that it be rejected, I would ask that the court's substitute be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. With the recommendation that it be rejected, the question is, shall the court substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. Those have it. The court substitute is rejected. The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee substitute from the Finance Committee be agreed to.
The question is, shall the Finance substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Finance substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 760, reported from the Committee on Finance with an amendment.
Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee amendment be agreed to.
Question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 834, reported from the Committee on Finance with a substitute.
Senator from Augusta, Senator.
Mr. President, I move the committee substitute be agreed to.
And could that come out of the block, Mr. President?
Yes, sir. The question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. Without objection, House Bill 834 will come out of the block.
House Bill 842, reported from the Committee on Finance with an amendment.
Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Mr. President, I move the committee amendment be agreed to.
Question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to. The senator from Richmond City.
Mr. President, can House Bill 842 on page 40 come out of the block, please?
Without objection, House Bill 842 will come out of the block.
House Bill 886, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 961, reported from the Committee on Finance.
Mr. President.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
I would respectfully ask on page 41, House Bill 961 be removed from the block and pass by for the day, sir.
Without objection, House Bill 961 will come out of the block and by for the day.
House Bill 1087, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute, and from the Committee on Finance.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the court substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1102, reported from the Committee on Finance with a substitute.
The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Mr. President, I move the committee substitute be agreed to.
Question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1111, reported from the Committee on Transportation with a substitute, and from the Committee on Finance.
Carrico. The senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
Move the committee substitute.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1189, reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute, and from the Committee on Finance.
The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the court substitute be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the court's substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1207, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 1255, reported from the Committee on Local Government with a substitute.
The senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to. The question is, shall the House bills pass in block? That is, all bills except for 47, 434, 842, and 961.
Mr. President.
The senator from Fairfax City.
Was House Bill 177 removed from the block?
No, sir, it wasn't.
Could that be removed?
Senator, what page is that on?
On page 35.
Without objection, House Bill 177 will come out of the block.
Mr. President.
Senator from Franklin, Senator
My apologies,
Stanley.
sir. Can House Bill 180 come out of the block, sir?
36. Without objection, House Bill 180.
Page 36, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Will come out of the block. And any other requests? The question is, shall the House bills pass in block? That is, all bills except for 47, 177, 180, 834, 842, and 961. All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The bills in the block pass. Returning to page 35 of the calendar. House Bill 47. The senator from Lynchburg, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the committee substitute be agreed to.
Senator, we've already agreed that. We just need to move the bill.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass, and speaking that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this is a bill that does not actually put in place the requirement that we have the mixed delivery on the delivery system for the education program, but what it does do is it sets up the framework for a fund that there can be donations to that would go in for this purpose. The mixed delivery could include, if they wanted to participate, public, non-sectarian, private, and faith-based education centers. It would seek to ensure that we can come up with a program where individuals that pass and get a certification can move from one of these types of institutions to the other. The concern that I would have and others would have that eventually or now it would become a requirement that you pick up this certification, especially in some of the religious institutions. I've spoken to the patron about that, and it is clear to me that that is not the intent, but that an individual can move from one of these locations to another with relative ease. With that, I would hope that the bill would pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 47 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 1.
Ayes 38, noes 1. The bill passes. Moving to House Bill 177. The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. Speaking of the bill, this bill is a change to the sex offender and crimes against minors registry. There are two additions that have been made to crimes required to be listed. One is human trafficking related offenses, and second is aggravated malicious wounding. There's been some question as to what the registry is. The registry is not just a sex offender registry, but it is the sex offender and crimes against minors registry. In the original version of this bill, as it came to the Senate Courts Committee, it had malicious wounding in it, which could be anything from a split lip to a bruise, which we consider to be highly inappropriate to include in the registry requirements. However, aggravated malicious wounding is an offense that is sufficiently serious crime against a minor to justify its listing, and of course the human trafficking offenses against minors as well was included in order to conform with some of the changes in the law that we've made over the past couple of years.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 177 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their vote, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 2.
Ayes 38, noes 2. The bill passes. Turning to page 36. House Bill 180.
Mr. President.
The senator from Franklin, Senator
Mr.
Stanton.
President, first, can I have my desk moved? And second, can House Bill 180 go by for the day?
Without objection, House Bill 180 will go by for the day. Moving to page 40 of the calendar. House Bill 834. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking to the bill, and I would move that it pass, first of all, sir.
Thank you, Senator.
House Bill 834 is the Go Virginia bill, and what this bill represents from the House bill that has now been conformed to the Senate bill, of course, is where we're setting up those regional boards to accept grant applications for collaborative efforts in economic development, which would then be referred to a statewide board. In the House bill, as I said, which has now been conformed with the Senate bill, that we have increased the membership on the statewide board to 22, and have made some other changes which I think are very appropriate, including having an annual review by the auditor of public accounts. Has been a provision that has now allowing for the state and the local boards to retain 8 outside consultants to advise them on the appropriate evaluation of any grant applications. And with that, I would ask that the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Henrico, Senator McEachin.
Speaking to the bill, Mr. President.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I certainly intend to vote for this bill on this day, but I cast that vote in the hopes of keeping this process alive. It has been made apparent to me by His Excellency that he takes the view that we are taking an executive function out of his bailiwick, and which will ultimately subject this bill to a veto. I think the concept is good, and I hope along the legislative path we can find some way to accommodate the governor's wishes in this regard. So while I cast that vote in favor of the bill, any number of us on this side of the aisle may change our votes to sustaining a veto should we be unable to accommodate the executive. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 834 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, nor. The senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 35, noes 5.
Ayes 35, noes 5. The bill passes. House Bill 842. The senator from Lynchburg, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the bill pass. Speaking that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this code section deals with the Board of Education's ability to regulate what type of initial licensure the board will set out. In this bill, it relates in line 84 to awareness of dyslexia. Mr. President, in that line, it basically indicates that every person that goes for initial licensure or for a renewal of licensure will have an understanding of that subject matter. Mr. President, the bill goes on at the bottom of the bill to indicate that the State Council of Higher Education in Virginia is to come up with a program that will be used throughout the state of Virginia for this purpose. It is interesting to note that the Senate did consider a version of this bill from the senior senator from Loudoun, and we really would like to have found a way to do it. However, it cost about $10 million. This approach came to us and cost a couple $100,000 going to the State Board of Higher Education. I would hope that we would pass the bill, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 842 pass? The senator from Richmond City, Senator Sturtevant.
I rise to speak to the bill, Mr. President.
Senator has the floor.
Very briefly, Mr. President, members of the Senate, I did not have the benefit of being in committee to hear the testimony on this bill. I think it is a laudable goal and seeks an important end. However, speaking on behalf of, as someone who is married to a teacher and as many friends and colleagues and relatives who are educators, there is some heartburn on behalf of educators when the General Assembly dictates in significant detail what a teacher must learn in order to be licensed initially, and what classes and programs they must take to get the renewal of their license. And they see legislation like this as a bit of an overreach from the General Assembly of dictating to them what they can and cannot learn in terms of becoming a teacher. So while I think this is a very laudable goal and important thing, I plan to vote no on this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Loudoun, Senator Black.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking in favor of the measure, I certainly sympathize very much with the comments of the gentleman from Richmond City, but dyslexia is such a widespread affliction, and it is something that I think there's not sufficient awareness of. Now, I had a bill in that was defeated earlier in the session. It was not nearly as good as this one because it was just too overreaching. There was too much imposed on the school system. This one is a little bit of a mild touch that says, you know, let's make sure that that teachers are informed when they're going through training about dyslexia. I think it really is important that we do inform the teachers. Make sure that just make sure that they're aware that if they have a child that seems to be bright but just can't seem to to do the work, that they may have a reading problem with dyslexia. And I think this is carefully balanced. It doesn't impose too much, and I think it is worth doing. So I'd encourage you to vote in favor of the measure.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 842 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. The bill passes.
Page 45, regular calendar, House bills on third reading.
Mr. President.
The senator from Lynchburg, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, if it's appropriate, there are a few of the bills in this section that we would like to go by for the day, including House Bill 8 and also House Bill 389 and 1114, Mr. President.
And you'd like to take the other bills up, I take it?
Yes, sir. Go by for the day.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, House Bill 8, House Bill 389, and House Bill 1114 will go by for the day.
House Bill 858, a bill to amend and reenact Section 2.2-204 and so forth of the Code of Virginia, and to amend the Code of Virginia by adding in Chapter 27 of Title 2.2 an article numbered 11, consisting of sections numbered 2.2-2738 through 2.2-2741, relating to the Virginia International Trade Corporation. Reported from the Committee on Finance with a substitute.
The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee substitute be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. The senator from Augusta.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the passage of this bill, and I'd like to speak to it.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I consider this bill to be a work in progress. The committee substitute deals with setting up the Virginia International Trade Corporation, and essentially that would be severing a part of VEDP into a separate agency. It's anticipated with the provisions of the bill that portions of this would be delayed until later. In fact, the substitute delays all of it for a couple years, but it was anticipated that an executive director would be hired in the interim. So I would expect that the House may not totally agree with the work that we have done on this bill, but I certainly want to keep it in play, and we move again that it pass, and we might get it in conference. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 858 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 37, noes 2.
Ayes 37, noes 2. The bill passes.
House Bill 883, a bill relating to comprehensive plan, reported from the Committee on Local Government.
Senator from Franklin, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can House Bill 883 go by for the day, sir?
Without objection, House Bill 883 will go by for the day.
House Bill 1017, a bill relating to education improvement scholarships tax credits, reported from the Committee on Finance.
Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the bill pass, and I'd like to speak to that.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Many of you are well aware of the Education Improvement Scholarship Tax Credit that we created several years ago. This bill is an attempt, after a couple years of experience, perhaps 3 years of experience now, to go back and refine it a bit. It modifies the tax credit by making the required reported donations qualifying for the credit and scholarships awarded from such donation It increases from 20 to 40% the number of days by which a scholarship foundation is to require the return of pre-authorization notice, and several other technical changes, Mr. President. I expect that there will be individuals who don't support this particular program that would want to vote against it, but I would hope it'd be the pleasure of the Senate to pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1017 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. The bill passes.
Uncontested calendar, Senate Joint Resolution on first reading. Senate Joint Resolution 182, confirming appointments by the governor of certain persons communicated February 23, 2016. Reporting from the Committee on Privileges and Elections.
The senator from Fauquier County, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we suspend the rules and waive the second reading.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the second constitutional reading be waived? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. The senator from Fauquier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we engross and advance the resolution to its third reading.
The question is, shall the resolution be engrossed in advance to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolution is engrossed in advance to its third reading. The senator from Fauquier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we suspend the rules and waive the third reading.
The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the third constitutional reading be waived? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. The senator from Fauquier.
Thank you, Mr. President. The resolution before you is our appointments by the governor, and the reason I move them all the way through is because the last meeting of the Privileges and Elections Committee in the House is tomorrow, so we're trying to move this off the floor. So with that, I would ask that the resolution be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the resolution 182 be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will record their votes. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The resolution is agreed to.
Memorial resolutions.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would now move that all the memorial resolutions on pages 48 and 49 of the calendar, which would include House Joint Resolution 327 through Senate Resolution number 61, be agreed to in the usual manner, waiving the reading of the resolution with the understanding that any senator who desires to remove a memorial resolution from the block will please do so after the clerk has read the title of that resolution.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the memorial resolutions on pages 48 through 49, HJR 327 through Senate Resolution 61 be considered in the block in the usual manner, waiving the reading of the resolutions thereof with the understanding that any senator desiring a resolution removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the title of the resolution. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The resolutions are before us in the block. The clerk will please read the titles of the memorial resolutions.
House Joint Resolution 327, celebrating the life of Antoinette Polson Williams. House Joint Resolution 328, celebrating the life of Robert Wesley Harrell, Jr. House Joint Resolution 329, celebrating the life of Michael Dean Tuck. House Joint Resolution 334, celebrating the life of Morgan Anthony Ayers. House Joint Resolution 335, celebrating the life of Corporal Harvey Snook III, ACPD. House Joint Resolution 338, celebrating the life of Jack Lewis Hiller. Senate Joint Resolution 183, celebrating the life of the Honorable Madison Ellis Marie.
Mr. President, could that come out of the block?
Without objection, SJR 183 will come out of the block.
Senate Resolution 56, celebrating the life of Senior Trooper Michael P. Dooley. Senate Resolution 61, celebrating the life of J. Cochran, Jr.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With the exception of SJR 183, the resolutions will be agreed to in the usual manner. All those in favor of agreeing to the resolutions will please rise. The resolutions are agreed to. Senate Joint Resolution 183, the senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, Senator Madison Marie was one of the most decent, kind, humorous, folksy, fun-loving senators I think we've ever had. He cared deeply about people, cared deeply about the Commonwealth, and he was in public office for the very best of reasons. Mr. President, born on a farm in Montgomery County, and after 20 years in the Army, he returned to that farm that had been in his family, I think, for a couple of hundred years. He served, as I say, 20 years in the U.S. Army, being enlisted toward the end of World War II. He was a veteran of World War II in Korea and Vietnam. And when he returned to the farm, he proceeded to continue what he knew best, which was farming. And he also ran a service station at the top of the mountain, as we've had other senators run service stations. And he decided to run for the Senate. And in 1973, we won election in a special election to the Senate of Virginia. He became known in the Senate for his folksy ways and also for his humorous approach to public policy making. Some of the issues that he was particularly interested in and he was known for was property rights. He was in favor of property rights and supported property rights before it was fashionable to do so. He also was a big proponent of conservation and the environment. And he and his family placed a large part of the family farm in a conservation easement. You could say, Mr. President, he put his land where his mouth was. Back in the late 90s, Senator Marie fought the governor who wanted to have the car tax cut. Many of us remember those debates. He always had a great story about them. And in one of the debates, he was pushing the food tax in lieu of cutting the car tax. And it got to be pretty hot in the discussions with the governor, and so he stood on the floor of the Senate and said he wanted to hold out an olive branch to the governor. So he had a toothpick, and he held out. And he said, well, some of you may question why I'm holding up a toothpick. But he said, I can assure you there were 2 olives on this toothpick last night. And that's the way he was. He had all sorts of Uncle Billy stories. Nobody disliked him. He was one of the most popular, jovial, fun-loving senators I think we've ever had. He was a mentor to many of us, including me. I enjoyed so much just sitting down and talking to him. He was an extremely genuine person. And he just really cared about people. The memorial service that was held in Christiansburg last weekend, several former senators came, some from long distances to be there. And it was a lot of fun afterwards to talk to friends of Senator Marie and exchange stories. There was one story after the other after the other. I wish I'd had a tape recorder so everybody could listen to those wonderful stories. So, Mr. President, I would hope that we would remember Senator Marie and pass this wonderful resolution on behalf of one of the most wonderful gentlemen I think any of us have ever known.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Fairfax County, Senator Sassbaugh.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, I don't need a tape recorder to remember that guy's stories. He was a pretty funny guy, and I got to the Senate as a result of the 1979 elections, and Madison had been reelected by 9 votes in that election. He defeated John Dalton's law partner. Well, there was an item in the budget for the governor to have a new plane because the plane that the governor had been using was in pretty bad shape. And Madison got up, and the governor was John Dalton. Madison got up on the floor and took he took it out of the budget. And I'll never forget, he said, "Mr. President," and that was, at the time, it was Chuck Robb. He says, "You give this man a plane and he's going to use it to campaign against you." He says, "I know." Well, Abe Brault was the majority leader then, or no, Hunter was. But they got up on the floor and, kept it in the budget. Another time, he told, it was when then Senator Good, later Congressman, he was the one that put in the first concealed weapon bill. And Madison was opposed to it, and he got up and told a story that when he was getting ready to come back to the U.S. after World War II, I think he was in Austria. He said, "We weren't allowed to bring any guns back." He says, "But one of the guys I served with decided he was going to bring that Luger back that he had bought, and he put it in his pocket. Well, guess what?" He said, "The gun went off." And he says, he's now the cowboy with the highest pitched voice in Pocatello, Idaho. And then there was another bill that he didn't particularly care for. And he says, I was in, and this, Senator Edwards said, he often used this character, Uncle Billy. And he says, he got up to talk about a bill that he was opposed to. And he said, I was in church the other day with Uncle Billy. And he said, the minister near the end said, "Who wants to go to heaven?" And he says, everybody raised their hand except Uncle Billy. And the minister stared at him and he said, "I'm going to ask one more time, who wants to go to heaven?" Everybody raised their hand but Uncle Billy. He says, "Uncle Billy, don't you want to go to heaven?" And he said, Uncle Billy said, "Yeah, but I thought you were getting up a load to go right now." And he says, and that's the trouble with this bill. It's not ready to go. And he would always use stories. He would always use stories like this. And I'll just tell one last one, Madam Chairman. And you don't have to hold your breath. This is a clean one. We were in 1985 session. Delegate Watts, who the next year became Secretary of Transportation and Public Safety under Governor Bilal, she put in a bill that changed the highway funding formula, and the formula was heavily weighted before on lane miles, and this was changing, weighting it the other way to vehicle miles. Well, Madison, who was over there where Senator Wexton is, he got up, and aside from castigating the fact that the worst Supreme Court decision ever was one man, one vote, he says, I was down at Pete's General Store, and he says, in came, and Pete had this barrel of fresh chickens, and he said, he says, a lady came in from Alexandria. We were always the fall guy. Came in from Alexandria and wanted one of Pete's fresh chickens. And Pete reached in the barrel and he could only see one in there, and he pulled it out and she looked at it. He was holding it up by one of the legs. And she said, no, I don't want that one. So he put it back in, swished it around, pulled it out by another leg, and she says, yeah, I'll take that, and I'll take the other one. Well, he says, Mr. President, herein lies the problem. He says, Northern Virginia's getting the chickens, and we're getting plucked. And these were the kind of stories that he used to tell. And I got to tell you something. We really miss him. He was quite a fella. But I just thought you all would like to know. We don't seem to have people like that anymore. The senator from Franklin is, I guess, heir apparent. But anyway, I just thought I would share that with you. He was really just a terrific individual, Mr. President.
Well, thank you for sharing those stories, Senator. The question is with SJR 183. The resolution will be agreed to in the usual manner. All in favor will please rise. The resolution is agreed to.
Commending resolutions.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would now move all of the commending resolutions on pages 49 through 53 of the calendar, including House Joint Resolution 295 through Senate Resolution number 60, be agreed to in the block by voice vote, waiving the reading of the resolutions. Any senator who desires to remove a commending resolution from the block should please do so after the clerk has read the number of that resolution.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the commending resolutions on pages 49 through 53, HJR 295 through SR 60, be considered in the block by voice vote, waiving the reading of the resolutions with the understanding that any senator desiring a resolution removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the resolution. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The resolutions are before us in the block. The clerk will please read the numbers of the resolutions.
House Joint Resolutions 295, 303, 315, 318, 319, 320, 321, 322, 323, 324, 325, 326, 330, 331, 337, 339, 340, 341, 342, 343, 344, 345, 346, 348, 349, 350, 352, Senate Joint Resolutions 176, 177, 178, 179, 180, 181, 185, 186, Senate Resolutions 57, 58, 59, 60.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The question is, shall the resolutions be agreed to? All in favor of agreeing to the resolutions will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolutions are agreed to. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Inquire of the clerk, Mr. President, does that complete today's calendar?
Yes, sir.
Is there any other business to come before the Senate? The senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I rise for an announcement.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, at 11:55 tomorrow morning, there will be a meeting of the Courts of Justice Committee in the old Senate chamber.
Thank you, Senator. Any other business? The clerk will please report any announcements on the desk.
The House of Delegates has acceded to the request of the Senate for a committee of conference on the following House bills. On page 6 of the calendar, House Bill 681, conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the chair of the Committee for Courts of Justice, Senator Obenshain, or Senators Edwards, Chafin, and Sturtevant. On page 7 of the calendar, House Bill 752, conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the chair of the Committee for Courts of Justice, Senator Obenshain, or Senators Reeves, Deeds, and Garrett. Today, Thursday, March 3rd, Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources will not meet today. The Virginia Legislative Black Caucus will meet at 5 p.m., 6th floor Senate Leadership Conference Room. Tomorrow, Friday, March the 4th, the Committee on Rules will meet at 8:30 a.m. in Senate Room A. The Courts of Justice Committee will meet at 11:55 a.m. in the old Senate chamber. The Republican Caucus will meet 1/2 hour before session in Senate Room 2. The Democratic Caucus will meet 1/2 hour before session in Senate Room 1. We would like for you to please clean off your desks tonight so that the pages can have their mock session, which will start at 5 o'clock. The weather forecast for this weekend. A storm system will affect the region Thursday afternoon into midday Friday. Precipitation will be in the form of rain, snow showers, with the bulk of the accumulating snow expected across western and northern districts. The Richmond forecast, it will be precipitation in the form of rain, snow showers. The current forecast calls for snow totaling generally in the 1 to 4 inch area. Salem District, snow, potentially rain-snow mix Thursday afternoon, chance of brief freezing rain near dawn Friday, 2 to 3 inch accumulation with icing. Lynchburg, snow north, mostly rain and rain-snow mix south. Accumulations may be 1 to 3 inches. Stanton, snow may start as rain in most valley areas, then turn to snow by sunset. Accumulations 2 to 3 inches. Whether it's cold or whether it's hot, we will have weather, whether or not. This is a forecast by Senator Saslaw.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The senator from Lynchburg, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until 10 a.m. tomorrow.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow.